Midnight, a cage, a voice so beautiful it almost killed him. Want more insane fantasy stories like this? Subscribe now.
He had clearly failed the college entrance examination, yet he still stood at the gates of a prestigious university and took a smiling admission photo with his parents. And in order to complete this lie, he had no choice but to continue pretending to be a student of that university, secretly blending into the lives of real undergraduates and borrowing their confidence to survive, even claiming that he would one day go to the United States where his father supposedly was, though in reality his childhood was defined by crushing poverty, a father who worked endlessly as a tailor, barely making ends meet, and a mute mother who could only communicate through signs. And it was precisely this background that planted in him a deep hunger for dignity and recognition. His life first began to shift when a foreign couple entered it, especially the woman who noticed his intelligence when, as a child, he pretended to play the piano using nothing but a sticker on a table. And from that innocent moment, she chose to nurture him, quickly discovering that he possessed an extraordinary gift for language, able to remember unfamiliar English words perfectly after hearing them only once, a talent that made her increasingly fond of him and eventually led her to teach him a crucial lesson during a poker game, telling him that even when holding a guaranteed winning hand, one must never reveal it and must always maintain a poker face so others can never read one's intentions, a lesson that quietly shaped his entire personality. When the couple eventually returned to their country, they sold their used piano to his family at a high price, a transaction others criticized as exploitative. Yet his father accepted it with gratitude, believing it was a fair exchange for the care and guidance his child had received. And as the foreign woman departed, she reminded him one last time to never forget the poker face, after which his behavior slowly changed, becoming less obedient, more ambitious, and increasingly driven by desire, a transformation his parents sensed but did not fully understand, with his mother believing there was nothing wrong in wanting more from life. Due to financial pressure, he was forced to abandon ballet in elementary school, though to protect his pride, he claimed it was merely a personal hobby. But rumors soon spread among classmates exposing his family's poverty, mocking his father's profession and his mother's disability, igniting a burning anger within him that drove him to beg his father to support 2 more months of ballet lessons so he could compete in the autumn competition, promising to quit afterward. And although the cost was overwhelming and visibly aged his father with worry, he agreed, knowing that surrender would only turn cruel gossip into irreversible truth. And when he won first place at the competition, he deliberately used sign language on stage to mock those who had insulted his family, tasting for the first time the power of victory fueled by resentment. As time passed and he entered high school, he excelled academically, but deliberately chose an arts major, ignoring warnings from teachers who could see that his work lacked sincerity and was driven more by vanity than emotion. Yet he stubbornly insisted on pursuing whatever he desired most, a mindset that led him into a forbidden romantic relationship with a music teacher, which he initially mistook for love, only to be publicly exposed and betrayed when the teacher cowardly blamed everything on him to save his own career, resulting in a forced transfer to another school and leaving him with a deep sense of injustice and humiliation. Upon arriving in Seoul at the new school, administrators initially refused to accept him, forcing his father to bow and plead repeatedly for his future. And though he was finally admitted, he was warned to isolate himself from others and focus solely on studying, after which his father left him alone in a boarding house with living expenses before quietly departing, a moment filled with unspoken sorrow as he apologized to his father through sign language and watched him leave. Yet loneliness soon consumed him, causing him to skip classes, wander aimlessly through the city, and cling desperately to phone calls with his mother just to hear her presence, leading inevitably to academic collapse, failed mock exams, and complete failure of the college entrance test. When his father called to ask about the results, fear and pride drove him to tell a harmless lie that he had passed, a single sentence that brought his father overwhelming joy and unknowingly altered the course of his entire life. Because to sustain it, he enrolled in a cram school near Seoul University and pretended to be a student there, studying obsessively while carefully constructing an identity until he met a real university student who treated him as a peer and pulled him into campus gatherings, restoring the intoxicating feeling of admiration and belonging he once had, a feeling that deepened when a senior student noticed him and pursued him romantically. family. And though the relationship filled the emptiness inside him, it also ensured his repeated failure to pass the exam. Yet when his deception nearly surfaced, he instinctively relied on the poker face, calmly lying his way through suspicion, eventually convincing his boyfriend, and even receiving an invitation to travel together to New York. To make this possible, he lied once again to his parents, claiming he had been selected as an outstanding student for overseas study and urgently needed money, ignoring his father's hesitation and unseen pain, never realizing that the money he received was meant for his father's cancer treatment, a truth hidden to protect him from worry. And although his deception was exposed at the airport and his boyfriend disappeared from his life, the plane still took off, carrying him away from home and towards irreversible consequences, until a phone call revealed the ultimate price of his lies, informing him that his father had collapsed and died overnight, having endured illness in silence so his child could chase dreams built on deception. And when he finally returned home and collapsed before his father's body, grief shattered him completely. But instead of stopping, he chose to continue down the same path, convincing himself that turning back would make his father's sacrifice meaningless. And so he once again went to the United States under a false identity, surviving through endless illegal jobs, drifting further from the truth, until he stumbled upon an opportunity that promised success but threatened to drag his life even deeper into darkness, sealing the fate he had been shaping since the day he first learned to smile behind a perfect